The first lie hit the courtroom before the clerk even finished calling the case. It came wrapped in a navy suit, a polished silk tie, and a smile so smug it practically sneered at the flag in the corner. By the time the woman at the plaintiff's table clutched her trembling hands together and looked up at the bench with tear-bright eyes, everyone in that room could feel it, that something was wrong, something rotten, and that before the morning was over, somebody's whole life was about to come apart in public. Judge Simpson did not blink. The fluorescent lights cast a pale wash across the courtroom, catching the silver in her hair and the stillness in her face. She had the kind of calm that made loud people nervous. The kind of calm that didn't rush, didn't perform, didn't need to. Across from her sat Rosa Alvarez in a faded gray coat with carefully mended sleeves, her back straight despite the exhaustion carved into her shoulders. She looked like the sort of person who had spent her entire life apologizing for taking up space, even when she was the one being wronged. And standing beside the defense table was the man who thought he owned the room. His name, he claimed, was Attorney Daniel Mercer, counsel for Blackstone Ridge Properties. He introduced himself with theatrical confidence, one hand on the table, chin slightly raised, expensive watch flashing every time he gestured. He spoke over the clerk, over Rosa, over the silence. He treated the courtroom like it was a stage and everyone else like unpaid extras. If you've ever seen arrogance walk in wearing cufflinks, you know the type. And if you already feel your blood boiling, stay with this story, because what Judge Simpson did next is exactly why people like, subscribe, and come back for justice that actually lands. At first, it looked simple. Blackstone Ridge had filed to evict Rosa for non-payment, damage to the unit, and harassment of management. Mercer said she was months behind, belligerent, and exploiting the court's sympathy. He spoke crisply, almost lazily, as if the outcome had already been purchased and wrapped. Rosa, he implied, was just another difficult tenant gaming the system. He even slid photographs across the table, cracked plaster, a broken cabinet door, a water-stained ceiling, and called them evidence of neglect and disorder. Rosa's voice, when Judge Simpson asked her to speak, nearly broke on the first sentence. She said she had paid every month in cash because the building manager refused to fix the online portal after her late husband died. She said she had begged for repairs after a leak started dripping through the kitchen ceiling. She said the cabinet came off the wall when it swelled with water. And then, with both hands folded so tightly her knuckles turned white, she said the thing that shifted the air in the room. "They took my receipts," she whispered. "And when I asked for them back, he told me nobody would believe me." Mercer laughed. Not loudly, worse than loudly. He gave a soft, dismissive chuckle, the kind a cruel man uses when he wants the world to know he does not consider someone fully human. Then he said it, the line that changed the energy of the room. "With respect, Your Honor, people like Ms. Alvarez cry because it's cheaper than paying rent." The courtroom went silent, not ordinary quiet, not paperwork shuffling quiet, dead silent, a silence so complete that even the bailiff looked up sharply. Rosa froze as if she had been slapped. A man in the back row muttered, "Jesus," under his breath. Judge Simpson lowered her glasses by half an inch and stared at Mercer long enough for his smile to curdle at the edges. Then she said, very softly, "Counselor, in this courtroom, contempt often introduces itself before I have to." That's when everything changed. Judge Simpson didn't argue. She didn't scold. She did something far worse to a man like Daniel Mercer. She started asking boring questions. Her voice stayed even, almost gentle, but each question landed like a trap closing. What was his bar number? Which state? Under what spelling was his appearance entered? Why had his letterhead used a law firm name not listed on the filing? Why did his signature on the motion differ from the signature on the notice to quit? Mercer answered too quickly at first, then too slowly. Then with the offended tone of a man who had built his life on nobody daring to check. The clerk typed. The prosecutor at the side table looked down at her own copy of the docket. Judge Simpson asked the marshal to hand her the defense exhibits. She turned the photographs over. No metadata, no date stamps, no chain of custody. Then Rosa, in a voice steadier now, said she had brought something too. From her bag, she removed an envelope, creased and soft from being opened over and over. Inside were handwritten money order stubs, 3 text message printouts, and a letter from the building's former super who had quit 2 months earlier. Judge Simpson read the letter in silence. Her jaw tightened. It stated that management had ordered staff to stop logging maintenance complaints from older tenants who won't fight back. It stated that Rosa's leak had been reported 7 times. It stated that receipts were sometimes withheld to create leverage. And at the bottom, the former super had written one final sentence in black ink that looked pressed into the page with anger. The man calling himself Daniel Mercer came to the office 3 times. Staff joked he was the boss's nephew, with the fake law talk. A whisper rippled through the benches. Mercer demanded the letter be stricken. He puffed up again, but now there was sweat at his collar. Judge Simpson asked the clerk to verify his bar credentials. The clerk's fingers flew across the keyboard. 10 seconds, 15, 20. Then came the answer no arrogant man ever prepares for. No active license found, Your Honor. The sound in the room was not a gasp so much as the collective intake of justice arriving. Mercer tried to recover. He said there must be a database error. He said he was pending reinstatement. He said technicalities should not distract from Rosa's delinquency. But the mask was slipping. His posture changed. The smooth shoulders tightened. One hand drifted to his tie, then away, then back again. Judge Simpson asked whether he had signed and submitted filings while unauthorized to practice law. He dodged. She asked whether he had represented himself to tenants as an attorney. He dodged again. She asked whether Blackstone Ridge knew he was unlicensed. And then the prosecutor stood and asked permission to provide newly obtained security footage from the property office, submitted that morning in an unrelated complaint. In the footage, Mercer could be seen behind the desk, rifling through tenant envelopes, pocketing cash receipts, and telling an elderly resident, "If you want proof, hire a real lawyer." There was bitter laughter in his voice. He had thought nobody would ever make him watch himself. The courtroom went silent again. Rosa did not cry this time. She simply stared at him, and for the first time since the hearing began, she looked taller than he did. Judge Simpson leaned back slightly, folded her hands, and delivered the line that would be quoted by everyone who walked out of that room. A rented suit does not make a lawyer, and borrowed authority does not outrank the truth. Mercer collapsed in stages. First the outrage, then the bargaining, then the desperate little fragments of self-preservation. He blamed the company. He blamed the office manager. He claimed he had only been helping with paperwork. But Judge Simpson had already seen what he was. Worse, she had seen what he had done to people who had less money, less power, less confidence, and therefore, in his mind, less value. When she began her final remarks, nobody moved. "Mr. Mercer," she said, her tone calm enough to be terrifying, "you walked into this courtroom assuming dignity could be purchased, that procedure could be bullied, and that a frightened woman with modest clothes and tired hands would be easier to erase than your lies. You were wrong on every count. The law is not a costume for entitled men to wear when they want obedience. It is a shield for people exactly like Ms. Alvarez, people who work, who endure, who show up, and who are too often targeted by those who mistake struggle for weakness. You did not merely file defective papers. You impersonated an officer of the court. You participated in fraudulent eviction practices. You handled evidence with apparent intent to deceive. And perhaps most revealing of all, you showed this court your moral position the moment you decided compassion was something to mock. Let me be clear. This bench is not impressed by your watch, your voice, your family connections, or your contempt. Predators often mistake patience for blindness. They discover the difference at sentencing. Mercer looked down. Truly down. Not strategic humility. Collapse. The kind that starts in the eyes when a man realizes the room no longer belongs to him. Judge Simpson dismissed the eviction with prejudice. She ordered immediate referral for criminal investigation into unauthorized practice of law, fraud, evidence tampering, and tenant intimidation. She sanctioned Blackstone Ridge, froze the disputed eviction actions tied to Mercer's filings, and directed housing enforcement to inspect the property within 48 hours. Then she turned to Rosa and with more kindness than pity said, "Ms. Alvarez, you were heard." Rosa pressed a hand to her mouth. The bailiff had to look away. In the weeks that followed, the ripple effects spread farther than Mercer ever imagined. Other tenants came forward. Boxes of withheld complaints were recovered from the property office. Blackstone Ridge lost contracts, faced investigations, and settled multiple claims. Mercer's face, once so pleased with itself, circulated online beside Judge Simpson's words, and every repost felt like another door closing on the life he thought he could bluff his way through. Rosa stayed in her apartment until repairs were completed, and when neighbors passed her in the hallway, they no longer saw a woman about to be pushed out. They saw the one who stood up and accidentally cracked open the whole machine. And that is why moments like this matter. Not because a liar got embarrassed, though he did. Not because a fake lawyer got exposed, though he was. It matters because one exhausted woman walked into a courtroom carrying scraps of paper, and the truth was enough when the right judge was willing to look closely. If that verdict hit you the way it hit that courtroom, tell me in the comments what line finished him for good. And if you believe justice should be loud when cruelty is exposed, like, subscribe, and share this story with someone who still needs the reminder that power is not the same thing as righteousness.